All right. So you want to find a partner of good character. Great. Congratulations. And I know you will succeed. Um, Stick around through this video and I can provide you my own experience on how to find a partner of good character, what you can do for yourself, and what you can look for in others to see how you may find or how to know if someone is of good character or not. Um, and this will be applicable for all genders, every person on the planet, but it is going to primarily be focused on women, as I'm a man and I can see from my own point of view the best, my own perspective, and this is going to be primary or solely based off of my own experience in this life, which is as a man. All right, so let's get into it. First, coffee. Dark chocolate coffee. Very good. All right. All right. So, number one, you want to look for someone who is able and who has a high level of acceptance of self. So, what I mean by this is you need to find a person who is able to understand that who they are as a person is directly a result of themselves. Okay. And everyone's going to know this to varying degrees and have this to varying abilities within their life. But you want to find someone who has accepted who they are as a person, meaning they've accepted both the good and the bad within them, because we all carry good and bad in us. This is an inherent quality of life. We are all equally as capable of committing good acts as well as committing bad acts. So we need to be able to accept that within ourselves, for ourselves, because if you don't accept that within yourself, then you will be fighting with yourself, because you will blatantly choose something to make it a villain in your life, and you will die on that hill, which is fine if that's what you want. But if that is what you do, then you will never be able to truly realize that you have the good inside of you and the bad. So you, like, whatever you choose, like, to die on that hill for, like, this is immoral and I will never stand for it, you are just as capable of committing that as the people who do commit it. And if you don't accept yourself, you will never realize that. And it doesn't mean you have to go do it. Obviously, you don't have to go and do something immoral, such as killing another person. But it's good to realize that you are just as capable of that as the next human, because we're all the same. So that realization within someone else is an extremely desirable trait, because it means that they have accepted humanity for what it is, which is all of the little imperfections that exist within us, exist within everyone. Okay, so with acceptance of self, it's also good to have a strong knowing of what it is that you want and don't want. And why this applies in acceptance of self is pretty simple, because yes, while you can accept that the good and the bad both exist within you and within everyone else, this is a great thing to accept and to realize, because it puts you in a position to where you are non-judgmental towards many things, and ideally everything in life. And if this is the case, you can realize that you are the one, or you should realize rather, that you are the one that is in control of what you get to put out and see in the world, in your own world, within your worldview. So you can decide what it is that you want and you don't want. And this should go for your partner as well. You want them to be able to decide for themselves what they want and what they don't want, what they like and what they dislike. Basic principle, and it seems pretty childish, but a lot of people don't know what they want in life. And you don't have to know everything. You don't have to have your whole life figured out, and your partner doesn't either. But you want to find someone who at least has an understanding of, I like this in a person. I like these traits. I respect people who are honest and effective communicators. So I'm going to look for someone that is honest and an effective communicator to be my partner, for example. And so knowing that, or knowing what you don't want, is also a huge indicator of that. And knowing what you don't want can come from previous experiences. And this is why you ideally want someone who has accepted themselves, because we all have a wide variety of experiences that we have been through in our lives, good and bad, both perceived positive and negative. And depending on the person, some people will take certain experiences a lot more personally and hold on to them, which can then be further down the line displayed as behaviors and mannerisms, actions, attributes about that person that are more unconscious attributes that have just been ingrained into them through prior experiences. But if you are someone who has accepted yourself, you will realize that you have had mistakes in the past, and that's okay, because you will accept them. And you should be looking for that in a partner, is someone who realizes they have had mistakes, accepts that they've had mistakes, and knows from those mistakes now what they do like and what they do not like. Not someone who continually repeats the patterns of the mistakes over and over. Okay? And this is not something where you should be avoiding a person with that trait. You can work with them and help them, but someone who has fully accepted themselves realizes that all comes from the self. So they are not going to be reliant on you for all of their needs and validation. And this brings me into my next point, which is a desire to work on themselves. A good trait to find in a partner, to have in a partner, a significant other, is someone who desires to work on and better themselves in all aspects of their life. If you're with someone who, everyone has laziness to a degree within you. And I'm not saying you shouldn't be lazy and you need to find someone who is like David Goggins and puts their body through the utmost physical pain and pushes themselves to the largest capacity of their body. You don't need that in your life, unless that is something you want and something you want in a partner. Then you should look for that. Which is why that's important. You need to know what you like, what you don't like, what you want and don't want in someone else. But if you're with someone who has no desire to work on themselves and to improve in their life, then you can pretty much be assured that where they're at now is where they're going to be forever. They're never going to change. They're never going, and not that you need to change, but it's going to show that they have less of a resilience towards, they have less of a resilience towards accepting circumstances and events that occur within their life. So if you are that way, that's something you should work on. And even if you're not, that's something, and you have a partner that you want to be with, that's something you should look for, someone who shows that they are able to be resilient in their life and in situations that will play out in the future. Okay. Situations, any situation, such as like losing a family member or a house, going in debt, whatever, you need to be resilient in order to overcome any situation in your life. And if you're not willing to work on yourself, which goes back to the first point, if you are not willing to accept yourself, then you're not willing to accept yourself, you will not be willing to work on yourself. And if you're not willing to work on yourself, you're not going to be resilient and able to adapt to different circumstances that you face in your life, which will lead to you being stuck and stagnant in where you are and not being able to see past the circumstance and situation that you are in that moment. This is not a desirable trait in a partner, because you want to be with someone who is able to be flexible and resilient and adapt to certain circumstances. Obviously, if you lose someone really close to you in your life, you're going to have grief and you're going to experience the emotions that come along with that. But if you have never accepted yourself or who you are or your past, and have not come to terms with the fact that you are not going to be living in the same situation that you have always been in, and nor will you be in the same situation that you are in right now forever, then it's going to be a lot harder for you to deal with something like losing a parent or a loved one. And then if you're not able to accept it, you're going to be stuck on it and you're not going to move on. And if you're not able to move on, then your whole life will be experienced from that filter of being stuck in grief, for this example. Excuse me. And that's okay if that's where you're at and if that's what you experience. But if you're someone who is single and looking for a partner, seeing and finding someone who is resilient is a good idea. And that's why I also think I maybe should have not taken 13 minutes to get to this point, but it is what it is. I think that in today's society, we rush into relationships very quickly, and everyone is looking for a relationship. And while that is okay, I don't think that is a good thing. I think it's one conservative value from, the past that we had with relationships was forming relationships over a long period of time, or like taking longer to go through each step in a relationship. I just think that makes the most sense, because obviously everyone is going to display themselves a certain way to a person when they first get to know them. And they're going to display the best characters and characteristics of themselves right away. So it takes a little bit to realize to realize who you are with in their entirety, rather than just the positive and best characteristics and attributes that they display immediately upon the first time you get to meet them, or the beginning stages of your relationship. And maybe I'll make another video on this and go a little deeper into it, but I think that's why there's a lot of issues with people who, like, especially with social media, we have this overarching need to rush and do things, and to like do things with a hurried mindset, as if taking an extra month on deciding on whether or not you like a person is going to radically alter the course of your life. That's absurd. But everything is presented in society today in such a now mindset of you need to have everything right now and you need to do everything right this instant and right this moment, that we forget that life is a journey and a process, and it's okay to slow down. And I think in a relationship, this is a great thing to do, to slow down, because whoever the person that you are choosing to be your significant other should be someone that you are choosing to be with for the rest of your life. I mean, unless you're polygamous, it depends on, where you're standing. I'm monogamous, so I'm speaking from a monogamous standpoint. That is the way that I'm wired. And when I'm choosing a partner, it's doing it in the way that I want to be with this. I want to develop a long-lasting relationship with them. And so having someone who is able to work on themselves and accept themselves fully is critical, because even if you go through rough patches, you will know that they are at least able to adapt and to overcome issues that they are going through in their life. Or maybe not issues, not the best word, but they're able to overcome and adapt to the ups and downs of life and stay steady through the ups and downs. And with that, you want someone who's able to work on themselves, because you want someone who relies on themselves and realizes that not only is their life a reflection of themselves and a reflection of their choices, their past is a reflection of themselves and their previous choices, but they are the ones that are in control of themselves, their emotions, thoughts. And like today, mental illness is so rampant in today's society that so many people use it as a scapegoat to avoiding being in touch with themselves. And then by doing that, you find a lot of people who are not willing to accept their emotions and their thoughts and their beliefs and who they are. And if they're not willing to do that, then they are damn sure not going to be able to rely on themselves to feel good. You don't want someone who is overly reliant on you for their feelings. An ideal partnership comes when you are both full and whole. Both parties are whole, and they have, maybe they have areas they're working on, but they know who they are and they are accepting. They are willing to accept the fact that they might not be perfect at this very moment, are not perfect at this very moment, but they will work on that. And in so doing that and working on that, they realize that they are in control of their happiness. You are the one that's in control of your happiness. And your partner should realize that. No one else, like, if I'm looking for a partner solely for the aspect of becoming happy and fulfilled in my life, then I am going about it in completely the wrong way. Because I should be giving myself that first. I should be happy and fulfilled in who I am. And then I'm adding a partner who is someone who is also happy and fulfilled. And they're just going to enhance that in me. They're not going to add to that or subtract from it. If you're truly sure of yourself and know who you are, then you will not need any external person you will not rely on someone else for validation, for feeling the way you feel and for being the way you are and for being the person that you are. So do not rely on someone else for your own satisfaction. And when looking for a partner, don't look for someone who is overly reliant on other people for their own satisfaction, because then you're just going to have to work on developing that in themselves, which is fine. But ultimately, going back to the earlier point of desire to work on themselves, if you find someone and realize they do not have a desire to work on themselves, like if they're afraid of being alone with themselves and just being on their own, I'm not going to say it's a red flag, because I don't like using red or green flag or whatever, yellow flag, I don't know. There's all that shit. It's stupid. But it is definitely something that could lead to problems in the relationship, because a relationship works best when both people know who they are and are whole and are going for doing things for themselves. And because they're doing things for themselves, they're inherently bettering everyone around them in the process. And so that's what you want in a partner, someone who is doing it for themselves, doing everything for themselves to make them the best version of themselves. And in so doing that, naturally everyone around them will be better and improved. And so I don't want to take up too much more time here. So I'll briefly discuss these last 2 points of openness and discussion of the past, because these are 2 topics that are, in my experience, heavily clouded in relationships, and there are a wide variety of opinions, and you see people having very firm opinions on these areas of openness and discussions of the past. Well, I think you should not hide anything from anyone. If you are truly confident in yourself and in who you are, you should have no problem with opening up to someone about your past and what you have done, and opening up and discussing any topic to completion within your life in relation to yourself. If you are not willing to do that, then you do not fully accept yourself. And there's nothing to hide, because everything eventually makes its way to the light. Even if you think it is in the dark, it always makes its way to the light. That's the way this world works. Everything you think about, dwell upon inside of yourself, will make its way to the light eventually. And now, I'm not saying you have to discuss every single detail of your life to closure with your partner. That's insane to do that. But you should be open and willing to talk about any topic. And if you are uncomfortable about talking about certain topics within yourself or about yourself, then you should work on being more comfortable and talking about that. Or at the very least, acknowledging that you're uncomfortable with it and being willing to work on that to whatever degree you need to, depending on the topic. Sure, not everything about you has to be known to your partner. Not everything about your partner has to be known to you. But if you find that your partner or yourself is someone who will jump through hoops instead of answering you straight up and truthfully, then that's a sign that they are not fully accepted. They have not fully accepted themselves. And they are not willing to give you an open and honest answer in a certain area. And you have to be open about your past, because a lot of times we carry emotions around from our past, like shame, guilt, blame, whatever. Specifically with past relationships, that's another point. If you or a potential partner is talking about someone from their past and using a lot of blame or guilt, if you can sense that the blame is either on, like, they are blaming everything on their ex for why the relationship was horrible, that shows a lack of openness to themselves, because that's never the case. Sure, there can be some issues with your ex, but ultimately the issues always lie within yourself. And if you're not willing to address those, then you're going to keep perpetuating cycles of blame and guilt and shame forever. If you can never accept that you are the one to blame for your life circumstances. So look for that. Look for someone who's not willing to accept all of their past and all of who they are. And while that's okay in itself, it needs to be something that is willing to be worked upon. Because if you do not accept your past fully, then you will never fully accept yourself for who you are. And whoever you're with should be willing to accept themselves for who they are, for their betterment, always for their own betterment, and for you and your life for your own betterment, accepting your past. And then for the betterment of, if you have kids in the future or right now, or anyone else that's in your life, if you're not fully accepting of yourself, then you are not fully presenting yourself to everyone in your life. And you cannot provide all of who you are to everyone if you are holding on to crutches from the past and clinging to them. And with that, you should be open to discussing the past, at least to a degree. Yeah, I don't really see all the need to hide the past. I think usually, look, if you don't want to discuss certain aspects of your past with someone, that's fine. But you should have no problem hinting at or discussing what it is that you like and don't like, and where your morals lie, where your boundaries lie, and when those have been crossed in the past. Because that gives you full insight into who you are as a person. If you have broken any of your own moral values, then that should be discussed. Why did you do that? Why would you let that happen? Why did that happen? And what have you done about it? Be honest with yourself about it. Otherwise, you will never accept it. And you'll never be able to fully present yourself in an open and honest and truthful way. So accept, everyone has moral values and boundaries within their life, within any area of their life. So you should definitely be willing to discuss those and speak on them, and speak on times when they were not fully present and why that was the case. And you don't have to go into extremely specific details, but you have to go into enough detail to figure out the pattern and the underlying belief and feelings, emotions, states of being behind those, and see if they still exist. And if they do, see how you can improve upon that and work on that. And one last point with everything, you're finding a partner of good character. You want someone who you can trust, who you can be open with, and who will be open with you, who feels authentic. You feel connected to them in a deep level, and every level you want to feel connected to them. And you should not be judging them for anything they do or have done. And I'll just end it there, because judging someone else is no different than judging yourself. And if you're willing to pass judgment onto others for their life and their life actions, then you should be willing to do that on yourself. So only judge others to the capability to which you can judge yourself. All right. And know yourself, know your worth, know your morals, know your values, and use that and use your own guidance and judgment to your own guidance and discernment to find someone of good character with whom you can share your life with. Alrighty. Love you guys. Peace.